Hello. In this group of videos, I am going to go through Miller's Chapter 31, and this is about environmental economics. Environmental economics is a topic that we really explored in the way we have the courses structured in macro when we talked about externalities and common resources, public goods versus private goods. We really explored a lot of these concepts there. In this chapter, we're going to just really take just one small baby step more. We're going to add one model to the mix that we've not looked at before. So what I'm going to do is rely on two videos that I already had created for the free rider problem and for common resources as a way to serve as examples of the terms I'm going to define in this little video, in this little introduction. So I would say that if you feel like you have the meaning of private costs and social costs really well understood, such that you can look at the supply and demand framework in Miller's Chapter 31 and it totally makes sense, you probably don't have to rewatch the tragedy of the commons and the free rider problem videos that I'll have posted. They are actually fairly interesting, though. They're some of my better films. I don't think I'm going to get any awards for them, but they're actually a lot better than most of them. So it won't kill you to watch them. If you don't watch them and you move on to the material and you find yourself feeling lost, then your first step is to go ahead back and watch those films and make videos, and maybe it'll help reinforce these things. Now, before I launch into those and end this introduction, I do need to introduce just a couple of terms. These are private costs and social costs. So private costs, here's the definition. These are the costs, and I'm going to change the definition a little bit from the book so you can have a different perspective, okay? Private costs are the costs of a decision that are borne, or as in lay terms we would say owned, by the household or the firm who made the decision. They're also called internal costs. So they're not costs I'm passing along to someone else. They are mine. I own those costs with my decision. Compare that to social costs. Social costs are the costs of a decision that are borne broadly or by society. If there are social costs, they are in addition to private costs. These costs that decision maker, these are costs that that decision maker very often passes along to society just on accident. Usually, with these, what we're referring to are just externalities. These are costs passed along to someone else. These are externalities are costs to a two-party transaction, so it has to do with the production or the sale of some good or service. So I guess we could say that that is a more narrow definition when we're calling it externalities, but it's really the same concepts at work here, where the costs are being passed along to others for the social costs. So loud music, motorcycles, pollution. These are all examples of social costs. So let me take something loud for just a second. A Harley Davidson. The private cost of a Harley Davidson I believe it's a straight exhaust that makes them loud. The private costs of that are the bill that the owner pays for the Harley Davidson. Those are the owner's private costs. But the social costs are whatever emissions the motorcycle might make, but the cost of the noise that the motorcycle might make. And that might be something that the owner is doing and passing along to others by accident, not really intending to harm anyone or pass any costs along to anyone, but there's still some other social costs not being borne only by the owner, but being borne by everyone of that owner's decision to have that motorcycle. So that's just a little light example of those terms. I really think the tragedy of the commons, as well as the free rider problem, brings home a lot of understanding of this distinction between social costs and private costs. The other thing that those videos will bring you is the discussion about how to solve those which the textbook talks about, which is the tradable permits that we explored with those topics. So if you're not following the textbook's explanation of tradable permits, go back and watch those, because what I do is apply tradable permits to the tragedy of the commons, as is most commonly done as a way to describe these things. So those are resources that are available to you. Now what I'm going to do is stop this piece and move on to the first of the two models that are in the textbook, and that will be the supply and demand framework when a negative externality or social costs exist.